Riven is an excellent bruiser in this meta. Her mobility and crowd control give her the tools to hunt her target easily. Her spells also allows her to be useful in team fights. Her stun flashing can be game breaker. Some matchups are really easy for Riven. Against Saiyan, she can avoid or cancel Saiyan's Q very easily. It is almost impossible for Saiyan to kill Riven, while Riven will have windows to kill him. Champions that offer some CC like Fiddle allow Riven to have more space in team fight. Yumi gives her the extra livability and control she needs. In some cases, she will become unmanageable for the enemy team. However, some matchups are more complicated. If you want to counter Riven, Singed is an excellent choice. His anti-dash zone and his poison work extremely well against Riven. Garen and his silence can also be a problem for Riven. For a very long time, Singed was considered to be a champion only played by one-trick pony Singed. However, the champion is becoming more and more popular, both in top lane and in the middle lane. His spells offer a unique gameplay, which fits rather well with the current meta. The fights being longer, his poison will have more time to act and inflict heavy damage over time, especially once the Riftmaker is completed. Singed is very difficult to catch in lane. His movement speed and his knockup allow him to escape easily. Champions who spend a lot of time running after him will lose a lot of life and time chasing him. Singed is an excellent carrier of Yumi, enough to make opponents rage. Some matchups are really hard for Singed. Ranged champions like Vayne or Teemo can really make him lose the lane hard. However, you can always try to avoid fights with a proxy between two turrets. Cammy can have several roles. She is excellent in split push, but she also has the tools to flank enemies in team fights. She can isolate an enemy carry with her R, or simply block a target for the rest of the team. Add to that her excellent scaling, Cammy remains a very strong champion in the meta. Cammy is a champion who snowballs extremely well. If you have the possibility to pick her and counter pick on a positive matchup, you will have all the cards in hand to snowball and carry the game. Champions who can follow up Cammy's flanks are very strong with her. When she engages in the backline on a carry and Galio or Nocturne can follow up with their ultimate, you will have a great chance to eliminate an enemy threat early in the fight. However, some matchups are quite complicated. The one that best illustrates this is Jax. Jax has an excellent scaling, and he will have the advantage on Cammy in lane, which makes the game very difficult to play for Cammy. Kayle is one of the champions who scales best. This new tankier meta makes her less easy to kill, which makes her stronger because it's easier for her to scale and go for her level 16. Once she reaches this level, she can really carry a team by herself if the team compositions allow it. The tricky part for Kayle is her early mid-game. She has few favorable matchups. She has mostly matchups that let her scale quietly, which consequently represents a lane 1 in the long term. She is, like many of the champions in this video, a good carrier for Yumi. Champions who can peel her are also strong with her, or champions who will draw the attention of enemies with AoE ultimates like Wukong. Some matchups are really difficult because the lane is unplayable from level 1. Teemo is a good example. Fiora is one of the best duelists. Her riposte can be devastating if she is well placed and make you win a matchup. Fiora is extremely strong against tanks. Her raw damage and life regeneration allow her to win almost all duels against tanks. The easier the CC is to anticipate, the easier it is to land the riposte. So the skill required is lower against this kind of CC. Matchups against Ornn or Saiyan are really easy for her. She is also a good carrier for Yumi. If Fiora goes ahead, she can easily 2 versus 3 or 4 with Yumi on her. There are however some matchups that are a bit harder, for example Wukong. If he takes the advantage in early, he can really abuse the matchup and hard win his lane. Vladimir is a champion who wants to scale quietly in the lane. He won't really have a matchup that he can abuse and hard win the lane. However, once Vladimir gets his first items, he will be a real threat. His AoE damage allows him to win a team fight on his own under the right conditions. Vladimir will be able to scale quietly against tanks in the top lane. The tanks will generally not have the damage to kill Vladimir, what will allow him to scale quietly. Champions like Taric or Xylian allow him to all-in even more than usual. With enough from Taric or Xylian, his Zonya and his life regeneration, Vladimir is very hard to kill. However, some matchups are difficult. Since the top lane is quite long, it is quite easy for a champion like Riven to chase Vladimir to death, especially if she plays Ignite. Yone has spells that allow him to farm more or less safely thanks to his E. He also has spells that allow him to chase someone far away thanks to his E and R. He can engage for his team with his R or simply follow up his team. Once he has some items in his possession, Yone becomes very hard to kill in 1 versus 1. He has a very good scaling. A champion like Fiddle is perfect with Yone. Both can be used as engage or follow up. They also mix his basics attacks and CC. The enemy team will have trouble to itemize against them. However, if Yone falls behind in a snowball matchup, the lane can quickly become complicated even with his E for farm at distance. Gangplank is a difficult champion to master. In addition to his easy poke thanks to his Q, it will be necessary to master the barrels to have an impact in the game. However, once you master it, Gangplank is a top meta champion of the moment. You can also have an impact on the rest of the game with your R. His orange allows him to get out of tricky situations. Gangplank has many positive matchups. His Q allows him to hold several matchups that can also be difficult for other melee champions. The poke with his Q allows him, for example, to hold against Vayne. The champions that help set up fights are strong with Gangplank. The only thing Gangplank doesn't have are CC. Some matchups are still difficult. If a champion is able to just run on you and kill you like Olaf, you will have a very hard lane. Ornn is the meta tank of the moment. He has spells that bring him a lot of value in terms of survival during the landing phase or during team fights. He can engage for his team or peel for his carries. Her passive also allows you to upgrade the items of her allies, which can be incredibly valuable. Ornn doesn't have many matchups, however he holds up very well against champions who need to take a lead in lanes such as Renekton or Teemo. Ornn is an excellent team fighter. If you pair his engage with a very strong team fighter like Fiddle or Nocturne, you will have a lot of tools to win your team fights. However, Ornn has a few cons that will make his lane a hell. When you play against Fiora, she will gradually take over the matchup without you being able to do anything about it. This is a situational champion who, if chosen in the right conditions, can have a huge impact whether in lane or in team fights with his R. When you play Mordekaiser against a tank, you will most likely have the advantage in your matchup. His spells, shield, and heal give him tremendous longevity in long fights. When an enemy champion can make a difference in a team fight, you can R him and cancel his impact at a certain point, which can be game breaker. Champions that can peel for Mordekaiser like Janna are very strong with it. Already it is very hard to kill. Champions with long teamfight durability are also strong with Mordekaiser. You can play with the focus switch and drive your opponents crazy. However, some matchups are really hard. If you fall against a Fiora, the early can be okay, but once this one gets items, the 1v1 becomes very complicated.